Imagine this. You wake up in your mid-30s with the crushing realization that you've done everything they told you to do. You chased your passion. You turned it into a career. You believed the glowing slogans on Instagram and the TED Talks that promised, "Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life." And yet, here you are, burned out, disillusioned, quietly resentful of the very thing you thought would save you. The work you once adored now feels like a prison. The dream you pursued has started to feel like a debt you can't repay. The problem? No one told you that passion fades under pressure, that what ignites your soul in moments of leisure can suffocate it when chained to survival. No one warned you that turning your joy into a paycheck changes the joy itself. You look around and wonder, why does this happen? Why do so many people who follow their passion end up miserable? Is passion a compass or a trap? Could it be that the very advice we've been sold as liberating is the same advice that quietly enslaves us? And if that's true, then what replaces it? What do you follow instead? These questions aren't just philosophical. They cut to the core of how you define your life. The answer will not comfort you, but it will free you. The command to follow your passion sounds harmless, even inspiring, because it appeals to one of the deepest human needs, the need for meaning. We are creatures wired to search for purpose, to find a sense of why behind our actions. Carl Jung argued that without a unifying purpose, the psyche begins to fracture. An aimless life often breeds anxiety, depression, and existential dread. And so when someone tells you, follow your passion, your mind translates it into, this is the path to wholeness. But the trouble lies not in the yearning for purpose. It lies in the oversimplification. The passion-first mantra assumes that your emotional excitement today is the same thing as your life's calling tomorrow. It ignores the inconvenient truth Nietzsche once put bluntly, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But finding that why often requires walking through difficulty, uncertainty, and the unglamorous grind. Passion is not a static truth buried inside you, waiting to be discovered fully formed. It is shaped, sculpted, and sometimes painfully earned. The modern obsession with passion is also a product of our cultural machinery. The self-help industry thrives on giving quick, emotionally satisfying answers to complex existential problems. Social media magnifies this. Scroll through your feed and you'll see bite-sized inspiration. Quit your job and travel the world. Turn your hobby into your hustle. Each is a dopamine hit that feels like a life plan. Yet beneath the surface, these slogans promote a dangerously incomplete philosophy. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre warned of bad faith, living according to borrowed ideals instead of confronting the raw responsibility of creating your own. When you latch onto a ready-made slogan like "Follow your passion," you outsource the difficult work of self-definition. You cling to an idea that feels personal but is actually mass-produced. Psychologically, this advice triggers a trap. It frames passion as a pre-existing treasure you must unearth, something you either have or you don't. If you can't find it, you feel defective. If you do find it but struggle to make it sustainable, you feel like you've failed yourself. This binary thinking ignores how human motivation truly works. Neuroscience shows that passion grows not simply from preference, but from mastery. The brain's reward systems light up most when we get better at something, when effort and improvement feed our sense of identity. Passion often follows skill, not the other way around. There's also a subtle form of ego inflation at play. The idea that you're destined for one perfect pursuit taps into the desire to be special, to live a life unlike anyone else's. But in chasing that ideal, you may overlook the value of developing discipline, resilience, and adaptability, qualities that make almost any path fulfilling. Arthur Schopenhauer observed that most people's suffering comes from clinging too tightly to their desires, mistaking them for destiny. The follow your passion culture supercharges this tendency, convincing you that the strength of your desire is proof of its rightness. And then there is the economic shadow lurking behind this philosophy. Passion-oriented career advice often ignores the brutal reality of the marketplace. Many passions, art, music, writing, even certain sciences, are notoriously difficult to monetize. Cal Newport himself points out that the passion-first mindset sets people up for frustration because it ignores the law of supply and demand. Your love for something does not create value in the world unless it also meets a need. In a society that trades value for currency, this omission is fatal. So why does this advice persist despite so many broken dreams in its wake? Because it offers emotional clarity in a world that feels chaotic. Because it promises an identity without the uncertainty of trial and error. Because it sells the illusion that fulfillment is a single discovery away. But as we'll see next, the problem is not just that follow your passion is incomplete, it's that it carries hidden costs you rarely see until it's too late. At first, the follow your passion path feels intoxicating. It's the honeymoon phase. Your energy is high, your motivation unquestioned. Friends envy your clarity, strangers admire your boldness, but slowly, without warning, the glow begins to fade, and what replaces it isn't just boredom, it's a strange, gnawing emptiness. The first consequence is expectation inflation. When you choose a path because it excites you, you unconsciously expect it to excite you forever. But human psychology is a moving target. Hedonic adaptation, the brain's tendency to normalize any emotional high, ensures that even your dream job will eventually feel ordinary. That adrenaline rush you felt at the start, it becomes the baseline, and anything less feels like failure. You begin to wonder if you picked the wrong passion, and the cycle starts again. Next comes identity entanglement. Your self-worth becomes fused with your work. If your passion project struggles, you don't just think the work is failing, you think you are failing. This creates a fragile identity structure, one that shatters under the slightest setback. Carl Jung warned that over-identifying with any single role or ideal creates a psychological imbalance, what he called inflation, where the ego swells beyond healthy proportion. In passion-driven careers, that inflation can turn into devastation when reality doesn't match the ideal. A more insidious consequence is skill stagnation. Because passion is framed as an emotional truth, you may resist the unglamorous work of developing complementary skills outside your comfort zone. The sculptor who refuses to learn marketing, the musician who ignores basic finance, the writer who never studies audience psychology, they all limit their potential because it's not what I'm passionate about. Over time, they are outpaced by those who may not love the craft as deeply, but have built the skills to sustain it. Then there is economic disillusionment. The passion mantra often collides headfirst with the market's indifference. You may love rare insect photography, but if there are only 5 people willing to pay for it, your livelihood is at risk. As Schopenhauer observed, life often forces us to adjust our desires to reality, but the passion-first mindset resists adjustment until the breaking point. Cognitively, another trap forms: survivorship bias. You see the rare outliers, Elon Musk in tech, J.K. Rowling in literature, Serena Williams in sports, and assume their success was driven primarily by passion. You overlook the thousands who were equally passionate but failed quietly, their stories untold. This distorted view fuels unrealistic expectations and a constant feeling that you're behind or not enough. The societal consequence is equally troubling: collective disillusionment. An entire generation raised on follow your passion enters the workforce expecting constant inspiration. When reality offers routine, challenge, and friction instead, many disengage, hop from job to job, or spiral into burnout. Employers label them as entitled, they label themselves as lost, and perhaps the deepest consequence is existential paralysis. When passion is the compass, uncertainty feels like death. If you haven't found your passion yet, you may avoid taking action altogether, waiting for a lightning bolt of clarity that never comes. Sartre would call this a form of self-deception. refusing to act in the name of avoiding responsibility. In truth, passion often emerges through action, not before it. By the time most people see these consequences, they are too invested to change course without immense emotional cost. They've branded themselves around their passion. They've told the world, "This is who I am." To pivot feels like admitting failure. But here's the unsettling truth. The trap is escapable, just not in the way you think. Breaking free requires dismantling the very narrative that brought you here. It requires replacing the idea of passion as a starting point with something far more stable, more resilient, and paradoxically more fulfilling. And that is where the rebellion begins. Breaking free from the follow your passion trap feels at first like betrayal. Betrayal of the self-image you've carried. Betrayal of the advice you've shared with others. Betrayal of that bright-eyed younger version of you who believed passion would carry you through the storms. But rebellion often begins with betrayal, because to reject a falsehood, you must first admit you were seduced by it. The first step in this rebellion is a radical reframe. Stop asking, "What am I passionate about?" and start asking, "What can I get really good at that matters?" Cal Newport calls this the craftsman mindset, focusing not on what the world can give you, but on what rare and valuable skills you can give to the world. The difference is profound. Passion-first thinking is emotional, craftsmanship-first thinking is structural. The former demands inspiration before work. The latter produces inspiration through work. This is not a romantic idea, it's a disciplined one. Nietzsche spoke of becoming who you are, not through sudden revelation, but through long, often painful transformation. The sculptor doesn't begin with the statue. They begin with a block of marble and the willingness to strike it again and again, not knowing if beauty will emerge. The same applies to you. Purpose is not discovered whole. It's constructed, brick by brick, skill by skill. The second step is to divorce your identity from your current pursuits. You are not your job title, your Instagram bio, or your current skill set. You are the capacity to learn, adapt, and contribute. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, described meaning not as something we demand from life, but something we respond to, moment by moment, opportunity by opportunity. When you stop seeing passion as a single soulmate and start seeing it as a relationship you build with whatever you commit to, you unlock freedom. Third, embrace skill stacking and value creation. The most resilient careers are built at the intersection of competencies, not the tunnel vision of a single obsession. A writer who understands marketing, psychology, and design has more leverage than a writer who only writes. This is how you transform a modest interest into a thriving vocation, by expanding the ecosystem around it. Fourth, allow for seasons of detachment. You will not love your craft every day, and that's not a sign you've chosen wrongly. It's a sign you're human. Mastery requires enduring stretches of boredom, frustration, and doubt. These are not obstacles. They are the forge in which passion is strengthened. Schopenhauer observed that much of human greatness comes from the will to persist despite the absence of immediate pleasure. Finally, build meaning through contribution, not consumption. Many people confuse passion with self-indulgence, pursuing only what feels good in the moment. True fulfillment often comes from doing what serves others, even when it's inconvenient or difficult. Ask yourself, if this passion of mine disappeared tomorrow, could I still create value in the world? If the answer is yes, you are building on bedrock, not sand. This rebellion is not about killing passion. It's about dethroning it from its false position as ruler of your decisions. Passion becomes a worthy ally when it is earned, not assumed. When you treat it as the byproduct of mastery, meaning, and service, it grows stronger, more stable, and less dependent on fleeting emotion. By rejecting the lie, you give yourself permission to grow into passions you haven't even imagined yet. And in doing so, you stop living in pursuit of a single lightning strike and start building the kind of life that generates its own light. But even this rebellion is not the final destination. There is a deeper truth, one that explains why this shift works and why the people who embrace it often seem untouchable in their fulfillment. That truth changes everything. Here's the truth no one tells you. Passion is not the cause of great work. It is the consequence of it. We grow up believing that passion is this rare, pre-existing fire buried deep inside us, an essence we must uncover before we can live meaningfully. But the reality, proven across disciplines, generations, and philosophies, is the opposite. Passion emerges from mastery, not the other way around. The reason is simple, yet easily overlooked. Emotional energy clings to what we've invested ourselves into. What we suffer for, what we strive for, what we improve in, it becomes ours, and in becoming ours, we begin to love it. Viktor Frankl understood this when he said that meaning is found not in chasing pleasure, but in dedicating ourselves to a purpose greater than ourselves. Nietzsche understood it when he spoke of amor fati, the love of one's fate, not as a random gift, but as something shaped by how you respond to it. Even Cal Newport's research shows that the most fulfilled people didn't start with a burning passion. They started with curiosity, built rare and valuable skills, and fell in love with what they became exceptional at. This reframes everything. If passion is earned, not found, then you can stop anxiously searching for the perfect thing and instead start committing to building excellence where you stand. It means you're never too late, because passion isn't something that expires, it's something that compounds. The older you get, the more skill you can stack and the deeper your passion can run. This truth also exposes why so many who follow their passion burn out. They're trying to shortcut the process. They expect the emotional high to precede the work, rather than be born from it. And when reality fails to provide that endless high, they see it as a sign of misalignment, not as the natural cycle of mastery. Once you grasp this, your relationship with work, identity, and meaning changes. You begin to see boredom not as a red flag, but as part of the terrain. You stop obsessing over whether you've chosen the right path, because you understand the path becomes right through your investment in it. And most importantly, you realize that you can fall in love with many different paths, provided you commit to becoming irreplaceably good at them. In this light, passion becomes something far more stable than a fleeting feeling. It becomes loyalty. Loyalty to your craft, to the value you create, to the way your work shapes you. This loyalty outlasts enthusiasm. It holds steady in the seasons where you feel nothing but the weight of the next challenge. And then, without warning, the spark returns, brighter because it has been tested. The ultimate truth is this: you do not need to find yourself before you begin. You build yourself in the act of doing. The self you become after years of disciplined commitment will carry a passion deeper and steadier than the self you are now can even imagine. And that truth is terrifying for one reason. It places responsibility entirely in your hands. No more waiting for the universe to send a sign. No more romanticizing the perfect job or partner or project. No more blaming the lack of passion for your inaction. The burden is yours, and so is the power. Once you accept that, you become unstoppable. Not because you are always inspired, but because you understand that passion is not the fuel of the journey. It is the treasure waiting at the end of it. Picture yourself decades from now, looking back on the winding road of your life. The moments you will cherish most will not be the instant bursts of passion. They will be the years you kept showing up when it wasn't easy. The mornings you worked before the sun rose, the nights you pressed on when no one was watching, the quiet, unseen hours that slowly turned effort into mastery and mastery into love. The irony is that by abandoning the chase for passion, you give it the space to grow naturally. You stop interrogating every choice with, "Do I love this enough?" and instead ask, "Can I do something meaningful here?" You stop measuring life in dopamine spikes and start measuring it in the depth of what you've built. Cal Newport's warning becomes a kind of liberation. You don't need to begin with passion to end with fulfillment. The path to meaningful work is not a hunt for the perfect fit. It is a commitment to making the fit perfect through skill, contribution, and perseverance. And perhaps that's the quiet revolution, realizing you were never waiting to find the one true thing after all. You were always waiting to become the kind of person who could turn almost anything into a source of meaning. So stop waiting for lightning. Pick up the tools in front of you. Begin. And let the passion find you when you've earned it. If this challenged the way you think about passion, don't let it fade into another forgotten insight. Commit to building one skill, one craft, one contribution you can be proud of, and start today. Subscribe for more deep, unfiltered truths that will push you past cliché advice and into real transformation.